Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Bold and the Beautiful explodes with emotional fire as the legacy of the Forrester empire becomes the center of a shocking downfall, one that nobody, not even longtime fans, imagined they would ever see. Eric Forrester, the king of Forrester Creations, the patriarch, the man who built the entire fashion house from the ground up, suddenly finds himself standing in handcuffs, accused of corporate misconduct, fraud, embezzlement, harassment, and falsifying documents to maintain his position at the top of the company, and the man he points the finger at first is none other than his own son, Ridge Forrester, igniting a furious father and son war that no one can control, heal, or quiet even in silence. It begins with a new line announcement, a major press conference set at Forrester Creations, where cameras flash and journalists scream questions and models line the walls waiting to debut the next design Eric has worked on for the company. But instead of celebration, the room turns cold, empty, suffocating as Eric makes his way to the front podium, shoulders squared, eyes burning, heart beating so loud that he feels like the entire company can hear it, because he knows what is coming next will change everything. Eric Forrester, one of Los Angeles's most respected businessmen, stares into the crowd of employees and reporters, and without hesitation, he publicly accuses Ridge of orchestrating a cruel scheme to push him into early retirement, claiming Ridge broke into his private office, deleted financial files, manipulated board members, and staged a confidential vote that would legally force Eric out of his own company. Ridge, blindsided and furious, rises from his seat and denies every word, insisting that his father is confused, overwhelmed, and emotionally unstable after months of stress, grief, illness, and depression, but Eric refuses to back down, calling Ridge a traitor, a thief, and a disgrace to the Forrester name, shocking everyone, even Thomas and Steffi, who look horrified as they watch father and son tear into each other. Reporters immediately begin shouting out questions. Mr. Forrester, do you have proof? Is this a family scandal? Is Forrester Creations collapsing? Is Ridge taking over permanently? And Eric yells over their voices, gripping the podium so hard his knuckles turn white, proclaiming that he will never resign, never surrender his company, and never allow Ridge to steal what rightfully belongs to him, because Forrester Creations is not just a business. It is his life, his identity, and his blood, and Ridge will have to kill him before he surrenders it. Security steps forward to escort the press out, but it is already too late. Within 20 minutes, television networks across the United States are running the headline. Eric Forrester accuses son of corporate coup at Forrester Creations. Ridge storms into Eric's office afterward demanding answers, but Eric's rage has no limit. He accuses Ridge of betrayal tied to decades of jealousy, bitterness, and resentment, screaming that Ridge never believed he was good enough, never believed his father loved him more than the company, and now Ridge wants to destroy him to prove he can rule better than Eric ever did. Ridge fights back with equal emotional weight, insisting that Eric's career, name, and legacy are respected, worshipped, and adored, but the board and clients are worried Eric's declining health and emotional volatility will damage the business permanently. Eric calls Ridge a liar and tells him he forged signatures and forced him to sign retirement papers without consent, a crime that would place Ridge behind bars for fraud. But the story suddenly shifts when legal investigators arrive at Forrester Creations with a court-ordered warrant. They claim they have evidence linking Eric to multiple accounts of financial manipulation, hidden overseas accounts in Monaco, false tax claims, extortion of minor shareholders, and the misuse of corporate money for personal investments. Charges that Eric denies to the grave, blaming Ridge again, claiming Ridge planted every piece of false data to get him fired forever. The entire Forrester family watches in horror as Eric is handcuffed inside the company he built, dragged out as flashbulbs pop and police sirens scream, while employees cry stunned, watching the Forrester patriarch lose everything. Eric screams to the cameras outside the building that Ridge set him up, shouting, "My son betrayed me. Ridge wants the throne. He forged documents to force me to resign. He's trying to erase me from history." The world gasps. Ridge stands frozen as Eric is pushed into the police car. Steffi runs to Ridge asking if any of this is true, and Ridge admits that yes, he wanted Eric to retire, but he never forged anything, never manipulated finances, and never called the police. Ridge insists someone else did this, someone who wants the family to turn against each other, someone extremely close. Meanwhile, Eric is taken to prison, fingerprinted, photographed, and stripped of his watch, his wedding ring, his phone, his dignity. Then pushed into a cold metal cell alone, forced to stare at 4 cement walls, hearing criminals laugh outside his bars as the echo of his family breaks inside his head. He thinks about Stephanie, about the empire they built, about every runway show, every dress, every memory, every kiss, and every betrayal. He wonders how he became a felon in the same city where fans worshipped him as a fashion god. The humiliation crushes him. The guards stare, recognizing his name, mocking him for looking weak and old. Eric sits in silence, devastated, whispering Ridge's name repeatedly with tears draining down his face, because believe it or not, beneath the anger, he feels heartbreak deeper than hatred. He never imagined his own son would be involved in anything that could lead to his arrest, and even if Ridge is innocent, the emotional damage now feels irreversible. Back at Forrester Creations, the board holds an emergency vote. Some members believe Eric must be suspended permanently until trial. Others believe the accusations are exaggerated, and the company should stand behind Eric's decades of loyalty. Ridge feels torn. If he supports his father, he looks guilty, but if he doesn't, he looks like a traitor. Meanwhile, Brooke steps forward and declares Ridge should not become CEO, because doing so immediately after Eric's arrest would look like a planned coup, and she refuses to let the world paint Ridge as a power-hungry monster. Brooke visits Eric in jail. He refuses to look at her, believing she supported Ridge's silent takeover. Brooke cries, begging him to listen, but Eric turns toward the bars and whispers that the world is dead to him now. Meanwhile, Thomas begins investigating immediately, believing someone framed Eric, and he uncovers something explosive. Electronic records showing deposit transfers made under Eric's signature on dates when Eric was in surgery recovering, meaning he physically could not have performed the transactions. So who did? Thomas suspects someone with deep access. Donna, Quinn, Carter, Steffi, maybe even Brooke, but the evidence points to someone outside the family entirely. Someone who has always wanted total control, Bill Spencer. Bill has always hated the Forresters and always wanted Forrester Creations destroyed. But then another revelation surfaces. Not Bill, not Thomas, not Steffi. Someone tied directly to Ridge himself. A digital signature proving that Ridge's office computer was used to authorize one of the embezzlement accounts. Meaning Ridge may be either guilty, or being set up the same way Eric was. Suddenly the narrative flips. What if neither Eric nor Ridge are guilty? What if this is an outside attack on the Forrester empire? Eric spends several sleepless nights in prison, losing weight, losing color, losing hope, and losing the emotional strength that made him a leader. Ridge finally visits him, desperate to explain, but Eric refuses to speak. He stares at the wall and whispers, "You wanted me gone. Congratulations." Ridge breaks, tears racing down his face, admitting he did want Eric to retire for his health, but he never meant for this. The father-son tragedy reaches its worst level as Ridge begs Eric to come home, and Eric whispers, "Home? I have no home. My home was Forrester Creations. You took it." Ridge leaves shattered. Meanwhile, Katie Logan tells Bill that she knows he knows something and threatens to go public with whatever she discovers. That same night, Ridge hosts a press conference claiming he will not accept the CEO position while Eric sits behind bars. Not out of guilt, but out of respect for the man who built the brand. But reporters tear him apart, saying the public sees him as a traitor to his own father. Eric watches this conference on a tiny prison TV and breaks down, finally realizing his son is being destroyed too. Then comes the twist. Eric collapses inside the prison yard from stress and exhaustion. He is rushed to the hospital, guarded by police, unconscious and unable to breathe on his own. The doctors contact Ridge and tell him they fear Eric suffered a severe heart attack and may not wake up. Ridge falls to the floor and screams in agony, remembering every cruel word he spoke, every moment he tried to rush his father out of his chair, every goodbye he never said, realizing he may lose Eric without ever fixing the wound between them. At the end of the week, with Eric still unconscious and Ridge under extreme scrutiny, the LAPD makes a new announcement. Digital evidence suggests Eric's arrest may have been based on altered data, and the detective responsible for leading the arrest is now suspended under investigation for taking bribes from an unknown corporate rival. Which means Eric Forrester might be innocent, and Ridge might too, leading to a massive future showdown because whoever orchestrated this has declared war on the Forrester family. And when Eric wakes up, the world expects him to reclaim his throne, rebuild his empire, confront Ridge again and face the haunting question. Can a father ever forgive a son for a crime that never even happened? Or will Eric still believe Ridge forced him into resignation and imprisonment, forever destroying their relationship beyond repair? Eric Forrester's arrest becomes a wildfire across Los Angeles, and by the next morning every newspaper, magazine and celebrity outlet runs the headline. Fashion icon Eric Forrester collapses in jail, Ridge Forrester under scrutiny. Forrester Creations faces its greatest crisis since the company was formed, and the world is waiting to see which Forrester will fall next. The hospital is chaotic, packed with reporters trying to break through armed security, desperate to see Eric, desperate for a story, desperate to find the truth about whether the founder of an iconic American fashion dynasty will live or die. Ridge stands outside Eric's hospital room, staring through a glass window at his father lying unconscious, looking frail, broken, pale and smaller than Ridge ever imagined possible. Memories flood Ridge's mind, being a boy watching Eric's sketch dresses, listening to his father's voice telling him to believe in himself, seeing Eric protect the family, protect the business, protect the name. For decades Eric was unstoppable, untouchable, unbeatable. Seeing him like this feels like the world reversed gravity itself. Brooke approaches Ridge carefully, whispering that they need to talk privately, but Ridge refuses to leave the hallway until the doctors tell him something definitive about his father's condition. Brooke pleads, grabbing his hand, saying what they are about to discuss could change the direction of everything. But Ridge doesn't move, doesn't blink, doesn't speak. He simply says, "My father thinks I did this to him. As long as he believes that, I might never get him back." His voice cracks and Brooke wraps her arms around him tightly. Steffi and Thomas arrive moments later, walking into a storm of flashbulbs outside the hospital entrance. Reporters demand answers. Did Ridge frame Eric? Is this an internal coup? Is the company collapsing? And Steffi shouts back that the press should be ashamed, that Eric is fighting for his life and Ridge is heartbroken. Thomas steps forward and boldly announces that he is working with a cybersecurity expert to trace the false digital signatures tied to the money laundering accounts, and he promises the truth will come out, even if that means exposing someone inside Forrester Creations. A heavy silence falls over the hospital corridor when Carter arrives, panic visible in his face. Carter reveals that the police returned with new paperwork demanding full access to Forrester servers, files, and personal employee computers. Ridge explodes, screaming that the LAPD is acting without evidence and is being controlled by someone with financial power and personal vendetta. Thomas asks Carter if he thinks Bill Spencer is behind the police action. Carter hesitates and admits Bill has always hated Eric, always wanted to take Forrester down, always hated Ridge, but at the same time Carter reveals something bigger. There is no legal record showing Ridge personally signed the retirement forms Eric claimed existed. No signature. No document. Nothing. Meaning Eric either misremembered the moment or someone convinced him it happened. Inside Eric's unconscious mind, doctors begin considering the possibility of neurological cognitive decline triggered by trauma, emotional collapse, or stress-induced memory disruption. While unconscious, Eric dreams he's back at Forrester Creations, decked out in luxurious fabrics, walking through the hallway lined with memories. Stephanie appears in his dream wearing a shimmering silver gown, whispering his name softly. Eric wants to run to her. He believes she's his salvation and comfort. But every time he approaches, she fades further into the shadows, a symbol of everything he has lost. In his dream, Stephanie reaches out and tells him, "Get up. Fight. Your family needs the truth." Eric wakes from the dream gasping, choking on oxygen, eyes flying open at 3:42 a.m., startling the nurses. The doctors rush in, stabilizing him, warning him not to move, but Eric is desperate to speak. His voice is weak, trembling but powerful. He whispers, "I need to see Ridge." Ridge receives the news and rushes inside the hospital room, only to see Eric turn his face away. Ridge begs him to look at him, terrified this is his last chance. But Eric simply stares at the window and murmurs that he knows Ridge ordered the retirement vote behind his back. Ridge shouts that it never happened. He swears on his own life he never forced resignation. Eric closes his eyes and says, "Everything I built, you wanted for yourself." Ridge slams his fist into the footrail of the bed, crying, telling Eric the truth. That yes, he wanted Eric to slow down, not because he wanted the company, but because he wanted Eric to live long enough to watch his grandchildren grow up, to share dinners, to laugh again, to breathe without stress. Eric listens silently. Ridge then whispers the words that break Eric open. Dad, I didn't want the throne. I wanted my father. The emotional silence that follows is unbearable. Eric finally turns his head, tears burning down his cheeks, and whispers, "Then who set me up?" Ridge admits they don't know, but they are close to discovering it. Eric closes his eyes and says, "It wasn't Ridge." Suddenly, Donna walks into the room, clutching a stack of printed emails sent from Eric's work account to Ridge, demanding Ridge step down months ago. Emails Ridge claims he never saw. Donna reveals she went to IT and confirmed those emails never existed in server history and weren't sent from any known Forrester device. Someone hacked internal messaging, creating false communication between father and son. This revelation shakes Eric and Ridge to their bones, suddenly realizing their entire feud may have been orchestrated by a digital puppeteer. The next morning, detectives enter the hospital with news that shocks everyone. Eric is being officially released from police custody due to medical emergency conditions, but the charges remain. Eric leaves the hospital under watch. Ridge insists Eric move into his home, but Eric chooses to stay with Donna at the mansion because he still does not trust Ridge entirely. That night, alone in the mansion, Eric stares at family portraits, tracing Stephanie's face with his fingers, whispering, "Who did this to me?" Carter calls with new information. A Forrester employee has been arrested for selling private system access codes to an unknown outside buyer. The employee admits they were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to leak passwords in server routes. Donna sobs in disbelief. The betrayal is internal. Eric asks the employee for the buyer's name, but the employee claims they never knew, only that money came through encrypted cryptocurrency channels. Meanwhile, at Forrester Creations, chaos erupts when consultants and investors demand answers. Sales numbers drop overnight, social media campaigns collapse, runways cancel, and high-fashion clients threaten to break contracts. Steffi calls an emergency meeting, telling staff that Forrester Creations will never fall because its foundation was built on love, family, and artistic truth. Ridge enters and vows to protect his father's legacy at any cost. But older board members whisper dissent. Some want Ridge gone, believing he attracts scandal. Thomas unveils massive evidence. The fraudulent financial movements were traced to a computer inside Spencer Publications. Ridge and Steffi gasp. Thomas explaining that whoever accessed the money laundering accounts used Bill Spencer's executive office internet connection. The room explodes in accusations. Ridge wants to storm Spencer Tower immediately and destroy Bill, but Thomas stops him, insisting it's not that simple. The hacker wasn't Bill. It was someone inside Forrester who physically went inside Bill's building to use the connection and frame him. Thomas drops another bombshell: fingerprint proof showing the person who entered Bill Spencer's office was wearing a Forrester employee badge. Justin Barber. Justin Barber, a man who once betrayed Bill and worked briefly for Ridge, confesses that somebody hired him to plant evidence. He swears he never touched money, never altered files. He only accessed foreign accounts from Bill's internet network so the digital trail would lead there. Ridge demands to know who hired him, but Justin trembles and says the man who paid him has disappeared. Ridge throws Justin against the wall screaming, but Thomas pulls Ridge away. Steffi asks what Justin did with the money he was paid. Justin reveals he never received it, because the bank account he expected payment from vanished days before the job ended, meaning the mastermind cut ties with him before the plan unfolded. Thomas now sees the bigger puzzle. Someone knew Eric would collapse under the pressure of false allegations. Someone knew Ridge would take the blame. Someone knew the family would tear apart. Someone intelligent. Someone patient. Someone ruthless. And someone deeply familiar with the Forrester empire. Thomas and Steffi suspect Quinn. Ridge thinks it could be Sheila. Carter suggests it might be someone with legal access. Brooke whispers the most horrible possibility out loud. What if the person who framed Eric was someone he trusted so completely? They walked inside his office unquestioned every day. Ridge freezes. Thomas pales. Steffi covers her mouth. Carter looks sick. They all collectively whisper the same chilling name. Donna. The room turns into fire. Ridge refuses to believe Donna could betray Eric, but Thomas argues Donna had access to Eric's passwords, his office lock code, his laptop, his home network, and knew Eric's mental and emotional vulnerabilities better than anyone. Carter says Donna receives monthly Forrester trust payments. If she wanted more, she might destroy Eric. Ridge explodes, threatening to kill Thomas for suggesting it, shouting Donna would rather die than hurt Eric. Steffi begs them to calm down. But then Donna walks into the room holding Eric's tablet, shaking uncontrollably. She reveals she discovered hundreds of encrypted messages on Eric's device. Messages between Eric and a mystery woman discussing company secrets, money transfers, retirement plans, and legal action. Donna didn't write them. Eric didn't write them. They were fabricated. Every message was generated using AI voice mimicry and digital document forgery. Someone cloned Eric's communication identity months ago, meaning the mastermind wasn't trying to destroy the company. They were trying to destroy reality. Donna collapses to the floor sobbing, terrified she might be next to be accused. Ridge helps her stand, whispering reassurance. But Thomas pushes further. Who benefits if Eric is gone? If Ridge is accused? If Eric and Ridge are broken forever? If media humiliates them and the company collapses? There is only one logical beneficiary. Someone who hates both Eric and Ridge equally, someone who wants power more than life, someone smart enough to write code, to create digital identity theft, to manipulate money transfers, to orchestrate arrest warrants, and someone who vanished from Los Angeles months ago without explanation. Rick Forrester. The hospital television later confirms Rick is living in Paris, running Forrester International with Maya, barely communicating with Eric. Ridge realizes Rick could access company accounts remotely, and always believed he deserved to run Forrester Creations, not Ridge. Suddenly Eric's arrest, Ridge's humiliation, the digital evidence. Everything makes sense. Eric realizes his youngest son may have orchestrated his downfall, framing his own father to seize power. Eric feels his heart rate increasing rapidly, struggling to breathe as he whispers one word. Rick. Donna holds him tightly, terrified he will collapse again. Ridge vows to fly to Paris and confront Rick. Thomas demands to go too. Steffi insists she come. The Forrester family prepares for international war, one that may finally expose the architect of the empire's destruction. But unseen by them all, behind the locked security cameras inside Forrester Creations, a shadowed figure watches through electronic surveillance. A figure with Rick's exact facial outline. But when the figure steps into the light, it isn't Rick. It is someone far more terrifying. An enemy whose hatred runs deeper, older, and darker. Massimo Morone's illegitimate son, Dominic, Ridge's unknown half-brother.